mai kako e nā hoa makamaka mai ka lā hiki a ka lā kau. Velina nui, miki aloha. Malo nui no ke ako ko ana o kako no ka pono o ka lā hui, ka pono o ka aina, a no ka pono o ka vai no hoi. Ea he olelo no iao e kalele ana ke ko'i o ka vai. Ua ka ua, ola ka honua o ka aina kula. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's September 23rd board meeting of the Honolulu Board of Water Supply. At every meeting, as you guys may see, I take a second to introduce ourselves in Hawaiian and share in Olelo no Ia, or a wise saying, to help to ground us for the work ahead of us. Today's is from the Olelo no Ia book, number 2802. Ua ka ua, ola ka nohona o ka aina kula. The rain pours, life comes to the plains. The water gives life to all. I want to take a second to thank everyone today for a full boardroom. We have many members in-house today in person. I want to thank everybody for doing that. Also, I'd like to state that our board is dedicated to providing safe, dependable, and affordable water now and into the future. At this time, we want to share a brief recording with reminders on public participation as well as virtual meeting regulations for board members as required by law.
Materials for this meeting under HRS Section 92-7.5 are accessible at boardofwatersupply.com/boardmeetings. The public may attend this meeting in person at the BWS Public Service Building, located at 630 South Beretania Street. The public may also view a live stream of today's meeting on our website at boardofwatersupply.com/live. We have been accepting written or oral testimony for today's meeting. Instructions and an online submittal form are available at boardofwatersupply.com/testimony. The deadline to submit advanced written testimony has passed. Testimony received by noon today have been distributed to the board members. We will continue to accept written testimony today through our online form. Oral testimony in person or remotely will be accepted during today's meeting. To facilitate as much in-person and remote testimony as reasonably possible during the time allotted, pre-registration and submittal of a written version of testimony at boardofwatersupply.com/testimony is strongly encouraged. To testify in person, please register using our online form or come to the Public Service Building at 630 South Beretania Street. We have a representative in the lobby to provide intake and further instructions. To request to testify remotely, please complete the online form at boardofwatersupply.com/testimony. Requesters will receive an email containing links and instructions to join the Zoom session. Testifiers will have 2 minutes to state their position. A timekeeper will alert testifiers when there is 1 minute remaining. Once the 2 minutes are up, please summarize to allow time for questions from the board. Then, make room for the next testifier. Board members attending any board meeting remotely must be visible to the public to be considered present and meet quorum guidelines. Board members participating remotely must also disclose their location and anyone present at their location during roll call. Meeting participants who are calling or video conferencing in, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. If you have a question, comment, or wish to enter or second a motion on an action item, please unmute your microphone and identify yourself before continuing to speak. If you encounter technical issues during today's meeting, please use the Zoom chat to send a direct message to our support team. Their names are listed in the message to all participants. To open the chat window, please click on the text bubble icon on the Zoom toolbar.
All right, at this time, we'd like to take a moment to take roll call of the board members. When I call your name, please say aye, and if attending remotely, make the appropriate disclosures. Board member Brian Andaya.
This is Brian Andaya. I'm here in my office in a conference room by myself.
Board member Kapua Pro.
Aloha mai kako. I am appearing remotely from my home office where I'm alone with the door closed. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui. Aloha Kapua. In the boardroom with me today are, I think, a record number of board members in all the time that I've been here. So starting with Vice Chair Jonathan Kaneshiro.
Here. It's you.
Board member Lance Wilhelm.
Yo.
Board member Edwin Sniffen.
Here.
And board member Gene Albano.
Aye.
It's good to see you all. So You can tell how long Gene has not been here. He got his obligatory green shirt just now. Also in the room with us today, our manager, Ernie Lau. Aloha. Deputy Manager, Erwin Kawata. Here. Board Secretary, Joy Cruz, that's you?
Here.
Aloha. Manager Secretary, Kim Kwai. Aloha. Information Specialist, Wayne Maria. Also joining us by Zoom are Jeff Lau and Jessica Wong, both from the City County Corp Council Department. Okay, so at the top of today's meeting, the Honolulu Board of Water Supply's public hearing was published in the Friday, September 13th, 2024 edition of the Star Advertiser. The purpose of the public hearing is to allow the public the opportunity to testify on number one, the proposed amendment to the fiscal year 2024-2025 operating and capital improvement program budgets of the Board of Water Supply. Chair recognizes Raylene Nakabayashi to take us through it.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. I'm Raylene Nakabayashi, and I'm here to discuss revisions to the fiscal year 25 operating and capital improvement program budgets. The proposed amendment number one is necessary to add $1 million to the operating budget of the Office of the Manager and Chief Engineer and amend funding sources in the capital improvement program budget, specifically project number 6, project number 7, and also to add $5 million for a new capital improvement project in section 2, renewal and replacement and treatment. And finally, the budget amendment proposes to make amendments to the provisions of the budget resolution, thereby allowing for temporary transfers. So we'll cover each of these in detail next. So the first amendment, or the first reason for the amendment, was the $1 million increase in the budget of the Office of the Manager and Chief Engineer. This amendment will increase the budget by $1 million for the development of the Source Water Protection Program Framework implementation. You may recall that in July, the BWS accepted the designation as a department to implement City Ordinance 22-1 that would have made BWS a permitting agency. And this budget amendment was intended to begin studying this new role. That designation has since changed, with the mayor designating the Department of Environmental Services as a permitting agency. But while we will not be the permitting agency for Ordinance 22-1 relating to underground storage tanks, we have been working on a source water protection program, which aligns with our charter responsibility to prescribe and enforce rules and regulations relating to the prevention of waste and pollution of water. The Office of the Manager and Chief Engineer will now oversee taking this planning document and developing the framework for implementing these protective actions. So where we are in this wheel of activities done related to source water protection is actually we're working through we're in the green section now, developing the action plan. And the next step is actually to implement actions that will result in the protection of source water. So this $1 million will help start that effort. Next, we move on to the amendments to the CIP budget, or the Capital Improvement Program budget. Project line number 6, this is an amendment to the source and amount of funds proposed for project number 6. This project is environmental investigation of emerging contaminants, and this is to provide environmental engineering and hydrology geology consulting services related to emerging contaminants in groundwater supply. When we initially came before the board in May regarding this project line item, we had intended to and put in a request with the Department of Health to fund this project using state revolving fund loan proceeds. Since then, though, since May, we were told by the DOH that they were actually, rather than give us a low interest loan, they're going to fund our project through a grant that they've gotten from the EPA. And it's a very long name and I won't read it all, but it's essentially under the bipartisan infrastructure law. There was additional funding given under the BIL SDC grant program. So that is the funding stream by which the DOH proposes to help fund our project. So rather than us fund this project with SRF, or State Revolving Fund loan, we will be changing this to source of funds will be an operating fund. And that is because as a sub-grantee of the DOH's grant with the EPA, this is a reimbursement only type grant, and it operates on a year-to-year basis. So the 3 million is what we anticipate to incur in costs this year, which we will have to upfront with our own operating funds and then receive reimbursement via the grant mechanism with the DOH. The other project that's being amended this one is not source of funding, but this is amount of funding. This is project number 7, construction management for various BWS construction projects. So we're proposing to increase the amount of funding from $2 million to $5 million, or a $3 million increase. And this is necessary to provide construction management support to ensure our projects remain on track and comply with all legal and regulatory requirements. So just a little bit of background on why this is needed at this time. I think when we came before you in May, you saw, or as we come before you year after year, you see the growth in our capital improvement program budget. And I think this year was the first year you're probably seeing us go after so much federal funding, even if this is specifically how much of the budget in proportion is proposed to be funded with the SRF program or the State Revolving Fund program. This is reflective of the fact that the bipartisan infrastructure law did infuse a lot of federal dollars into these state programs to help boost and improve water infrastructure. So with that, we are also going after these federal funds to help. These are low interest loans, some of them with loan forgiveness, or like what we talked about on the first project number 6, there are grant opportunities. But as we do that, it does increase the complexity of managing these projects. So the increased monies in construction management will help us stay on top of all of those and make sure that we can adhere to all of the federal, what we call cross-cutters that come with accepting either SRF loans or grant funding. Another modification to the capital improvement program budget was to increase or add a project. So this is a brand new project that we're proposing be added to the CIP. And this is going to be project number 54, and it's called Temporary Drinking Water Treatment Systems. And this is to install temporary treatment systems at various locations across the island. And these would allow the BWS to continue serving water that meets all drinking water standards while we develop permanent treatment facilities. So again, this one was not proposed back in May and not a part of the adopted budget, but a brand new project that we are proposing. And finally, this budget amendment is adding a new, be it further resolved, or provision to the budget document itself, or the budget resolution. This amends the provisions to allow the manager and chief engineer to make temporary transfers, no longer than 12 months, essentially from the operating funds to other funds as needed. To summarize this, the amendment allows the manager to do that as needed, and the waterworks controller will make a report to the board at the end of each fiscal year on the transfers that were made. And this is essentially needed as we pursue these additional financing opportunities, such as grants, which may operate on a reimbursement basis only. So even the SRF, or the loan program, it requires that you execute contracts, you incur expenditures before you can make drawdowns on either, whether it be a loan or a grant. So to make those temporary carries of cash while we wait for the federal funds to come in, this would help provide the board the flexibility to pursue that. In summary, the 2025 operating budget as adopted and CIP budget as adopted are up there, 272.6 million and 310.3 million. This amendment will add $1 million to the operating budget, and it will add about 6 million to the capital improvement program budget, for new totals at the bottom of 273.6 million and $316.4 million. And now, sorry, I'm on the Mahalo side. I am available for any questions.
If there's any questions?
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
What happens if the transfer isn't temporary?
If the
Like,
transfer,
don't get the grant, don't get the.
So the finance division, and Kaliko, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we will not encumber or award contracts based on like the SRF fund or a grant unless we do not have some kind of commitment in hand. So like when we apply to the state DOH for an SRF loan, they won't give us the full-on executed loan document until we've taken the steps to solicit, procure, and award a contract, because they want to see that contract and they want to see that it complied with all the federal procurement parts. But what they will give us is that they've included it in their intended use plan, and they will give us a loan or commitment letter. So they'll say that we intend to fund this. And then based on that, we can move forward with the procurement processes. So we have that in hand. Without even the commitment letter, though, we wouldn't use the SRF as the funding mechanism. And same with the grants. Without even a grant award letter, we wouldn't try to tap that grant fund. So the extramural fund or their SRF fund, unless we actually have something in writing from the granting or the loaning agency that is truly a commitment to pay for it that way. So when we craft the budget, it is our best guess, because even the entire SRF program requires you submit to them what projects you want to come in for. They don't actually set their intended use plan though till after our budget is adopted. So there is an intention to pursue funds. If we find out that they will not though, maybe we've made more requests of the fund than it has available, we will be here coming to you saying we have to amend. We actually found out there is no loan available on this project. So if we want to pursue it, we're going to come in and ask if we can self-fund for it or if we can fund it some other way or defer it.
Thank you.
Maybe a comment and a question. Just first, mahalo for taking on these new streams of opportunity with the federal dollars coming in, recognizing that it's kind of something new to meet the needs of this new state that we are in with some of the uncertainty around Red Hill and the water pumping regime that we've had to modify in the last couple of years. But just want to thank the staff for taking the time with that. We know that it is more complicated than charging ratepayers and taking in those dollars and changing out pipe every year. So mahalo for that. I just had one question, and maybe it's for Ernie. The $5 million for renewal, replacement, and treatment on temporary drinking water treatment systems. Understanding that permanent systems are much more expensive than that. Kind of what's the idea behind this in its temporary state?
It's something that we can actually deploy very quickly because time is of the essence to try to get the system in. Just using as an example, the IAEA wells PAH detection, and just to the west, about a half a mile away, is our Kaumila wells. So that's kind of what we're weighing is, can we, if we decide to go down that road, to actually put a temporary treatment system at Kaumila wells, just in case the pH plume, and we suspect there might be a plume, might continue to migrate further westward and eventually get close enough to Kaumila wells to start being pumped into the Kaumila wells and into our water system. So we're still evaluating that option, but this will give us opportunity for a temporary treatment system.
So you folks are working on something that's modular and mobile.
Yes, because a permanent system would take years to design, construct, but a temporary system that could be moved in place quickly and operated and help us meet the needs of our community.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. If there's no further questions or testimony, I'm closing the public hearing. Madam Secretary, any testimony? Okay. Great, thank you so much.
Thanks,
We're
Renee.
now in regular meeting. We have 5 items on our action agenda today. Starting with number 1, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held August 26, 2024. Is there a motion to approve? Move. Okay, it's been moved by John
Second.
and seconded by Lance. Are there any additions, corrections, or discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair Jonathan Concho,
Aye.
Board Member Postro,
Aye.
Board Member Brian Zaya,
Aye.
Board Member Lance Walden,
Aye.
Board Member Edwin Smith,
Aye.
and G. Albano,
Aye.
and Chair Nolly Whitfield.
Aye.
Chair motion passes with 7 votes.
Thank you so much. Please note for the record. Moving on to item requiring board action number 2. Adoption of the resolution number 990, 2024, amending the 2024-2025 operating and capital improvement program budget and appropriating funds therefore, and revision of the 2024-2025 operating and capital improvement program budget. Amendment number 1, Chair recognizes Raylan Nakabayashi. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. So as described in the public hearing that we had earlier, this is the same budget amendment that we're talking about with the same 4 reasons. Increase the operating budget, make amendment to source of funding and funding amounts in the capital improvement program budget, and to add a project in the capital improvement program budget for water treatment systems. And finally, to make amendments to the provisions of the budget resolution, and that would allow for temporary transfers. So after a loan commitment or a grant commitment is received, if it requires the board to front the money to encumber and expend and then receive reimbursement, this would allow the operating fund to make that temporary loan less than 12 months while it waits to be reimbursed by the grant or the loan. So we can kind of skim, I mean, the letter itself to the board is just describing what we went over in the public hearing and changes of funds. If we could scroll to the reso itself though. So this is the amended resolution. So it is in the first paragraph appropriating the 273 million for the operating budget. So that's $1 million more. And then the second or the next section where it begins to speak about the capital improvement program budget. Sorry, next page is where it appropriates the amounts across the various funds as amended for the capital improvement program budget. This is the brand new, be it further resolved. So if there are monies, excluding those that are set aside for the redemption of bonds or payment of interest in any fund that in the judgment of the manager and chief engineer in excess of the amounts immediately necessary, we can make those temporary loans so long as they are loans for less than 12 months, that the waterworks controller comes before this board to report the status of the loans, the reason why we made them, and the amounts outstanding at the end of the fiscal year. And that would, again, allow us the flexibility to pursue a lot of these federal funding sources. Now that we're out there actively searching and looking to, a lot of the federal funding sources are reimbursement only. So you need a mechanism to be able to incur expenses and encumbrances and seek reimbursement from the federal government. So that is essentially the main changes to this resolution. And this, if it meets with the board's approval, we hope that you will approve this amended resolution today. And I think the final page of this is just to, it might be the attestation from the Star Advertiser, or here it is. The copy, notice of this public hearing was run in the only general circulation paper of the state in the Star Advertiser. That was, I believe, 9/13, Friday the 13th, where it ran for the public hearing that we just concluded at 2 o'clock. Yep, available for any questions.
Was any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Motion by Lance.
I shall second.
Second by Jean. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair Jonathan Concho,
Aye.
Board Member Postro,
Aye.
Board Member Brian Zaya,
Aye.
Board Member Lance Walden,
Aye.
Board Member Edwin Sniffen,
Aye.
Board Member Gino Bono,
Aye.
and Chair Whitley.
Aye.
Chair motion passes with 7 ayes.
Thank you so much. Please note for the record. Ray, spend the dollars wisely. Thank you. I appreciate everyone's help in that. Before we introduce the next three resolutions to honor the manager of the year as well as the two employees of the year, I want to ask that all honorees wait for picture taking until after all of the presentations, and we'll take a 5-minute break to take all the photos afterwards. So item number 3, adoption of resolution number 991, 2024. Henderson LK Nuhiva, 2024 Manager of the Year. Chair recognizes Ernie Lau.
Thank you, Chair. And maybe Henderson, if you don't mind coming up. Okay, well, I'll just read the resolution very quickly. Whereas Henderson LK Nuhiva, Program Administrator of our Information Technology Division, or ITD, has been selected as the Board of Water Supplies Manager of the Year for 2024. And whereas since joining the BWS management team on November 2011, Henderson has successfully led the division that develops and maintains essential information technology systems and services that sustain vital 24/7 operation of our island's drinking water systems so that it remains safe and dependable for 1 million island users now and into the future. Whereas with cyber attacks against water utilities increasing, Henderson's vision, exemplary leadership, and ability to build relationships with key cybersecurity government agencies has enabled the BWS to continually implement and improve numerous proactive practices, policies, and systems to safeguard the department's IT infrastructure from malicious threat actors so that critical information systems and water facilities are better protected and remain secure. And whereas as a highly respected division head, Henderson, his calm demeanor, and I must say I witness to that, patience and problem-solving abilities, expertise, and positive attitude have helped build a collaborative work environment for the cohesive and dedicated IT team. And remember the CrowdStrike mishap that affected about 1,000+ computers of the Board of Water Supply. Henderson and his team, within a 24-hour period, got the corrections in place to get all those computer systems up and running again. So we didn't miss a beat there. He regularly meets to continue review and strengthen BWS information systems, initiatives, and system hardening strategies, as well as provide professional growth opportunities and challenges to encourage their futures as leaders in government information technology. Henderson has been selected as the 2024 Board of Water Supply Manager of the Year, and his nomination as the 2024 City Manager of the Year has brought pride and honor to the BWS, his family, and his friends. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the Board of Water Supply, City and County of Honolulu, that we hereby do express to Henderson L.K. Nuhiva our heartfelt appreciation for his outstanding service to the department and the City and County of Honolulu. And be it further resolved that the members of the board express our sincere congratulations upon his selection of the Board of Water Supply Manager of the Year for 2024. Thank you, Henderson. Congratulations.
Just a quick note of thanks. Ernie brought it up, but that recognizing that the onslaught of all of these different, whether it's phishing scams or computer updates, is just mounting and mounting. And so we just want to thank you for your continued service. The water supply has to keep moving, and we're just in your debt to see that through. Thank you.
Good job, Henderson. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Moved.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Seconded? Okay. Thank you, John. It's been moved by Ed and seconded by John. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Thank you. Motion passes with 7 ayes. Please note for the record. Thank you for your service. Moving on to item number 4, adoption of resolution number 992-2024. Tara Coleman, 2024 Employee of the Year. Chair recognizes Ernie Lau.
Thank you, Chair. Tara's not here today, but I'll just read the resolution. Whereas Tara Coleman, small water meter maintenance supervisor in the Field Operations Division, is a dedicated, hardworking, and exceptional employee who has been selected as the Board of Water Supply Employee of the Year for 2024. And whereas Tara's strong work ethic and steadfast commitment to the BWS, coupled with her skills, resulted in her being promoted to supervisor, where she has enabled her team to reach new significant milestones as they replaced over 19,000 automated meter reading equipment since 2021 on Oahu. Whereas with her deep insight, decisive action, and dedication to excellence, she has been able to successfully lead her team to expand their technical skills, which contributed to an increased drive-by read rate from 84%. This is our drive-by automated meter reading system. It was at 84%, but they got it up to 97%, while keeping the estimated bill rate just below 2%, improving public service to BWS ratepayers and increasing the program's effectiveness and efficiency. And whereas under Ms. Coleman's leadership, AMR team members have considerably improved their skills, and as a result, from January 2023 until now, they have successfully replaced aging meter equipment, including about 7,400 meter electronic registers and more than 7,700 meter transponder units that are critical to the AMR system. Through these changeouts, Tara and her team have saved BWS time and money that would have required other staff to manually collect meter reading data. Whereas she has also worked diligently to boost and strengthen her team's morale and productivity, including navigating the arduous process of converting 9 AMR members from personal service contracts to permanent civil service positions. And I'll just say that this was something that I would say one of our public employee unions, strongly suggested to us, and we listened. And Tara carried out that conversion. And whereas Tara strives for top quality in all she does and readily assists her teams and others where needed, earning the respect and esteem of her subordinates, peers, and supervisors. Whereas Tara's been selected as the Board of Water Supply Employee of the Year and will go on to represent BWS in the upcoming City of the Employee of the Year recognition ceremony, bringing pride and honor to the department, her family, and friends. Be it resolved by the members of the Board of Water Supply, City and County of Honolulu, that we do hereby express to Tara Coleman our sincere appreciation for her outstanding service to the department and to the City and County of Honolulu. And be it further resolved that the member of this board express to Tara Coleman our sincere congratulations upon her selection as the Board of Water Supply Employee of the Year for 2024. Thank you. Congratulations, Tara, wherever you may be. Yeah, maybe Glenn or Wayne, you can come up and just say a few words.
Thank you, Dan.
That's called delegation.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, Board, and everyone in attendance. I thought what you said was enough, but I'll read what I had prepared. Tara Coleman, she's a small water meter maintenance supervisor of our Field Operations Division. And she is highly respected by supervisors, peers, and her team for her subject matter knowledge, initiative, and willingness to take on new challenges to improve her skills and those of her staff. She's devoted to upholding the BWS's mission and does so through her exemplary leadership and strong work ethic. She effectively manages her team to achieve significant milestones in the maintenance and replacement of automated meter reading equipment, which ultimately improves public service to Oahu residents.
Thank you, Glenn.
Chair, please. Beg I beg your indulgence in allowing the former program administrator, who was actually kind of instrumental in convincing me that this was a good decision. Jason Nikaido, he used to be a familiar face here at the Board of Water. Jason, you want to say a few words for Tara? She can watch this later on video.
Chair, my name is Jason Nikaido, member of the public. Tara is really remarkable. If you go back to her story, she actually started out as a PSC on a professional services contract in field operations as a senior clerk. And when the small meter supervisor position became open, she jumped at the opportunity to try it out. She didn't have any metering experience prior to that, yet she still took on the challenge, learned the craft, just like the trades helpers that she supervises, and has excelled in just running that 20-year meter changeout program and also converting all of those PSC positions to permanent. So she has done a really remarkable job.
Yeah, that's a great story. Thank you, Jason. Thank you for coming in today. Yeah. Any questions, members? Do I hear a motion to approve? Move. Thank you, Gene. Thank you, Lance. Seconded. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Hearing none, Madam Secretary, please note for the record, unanimous passing with 7 ayes. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for coming out today to celebrate these folks who put the kind of time and effort in to really inspire us as to how we can be as a community in these kinds of settings. So thank you. Yeah, moving on to item number 5, adoption of resolution number 993, 2024, Brian Chong, 2024 Employee of the Year. Chair recognizes Manager Ernie Lau.
Okay, thank you. I believe Brian's here. Brian, if you don't mind coming up. Thank you. Hi, everybody, this is Brian Chong. He's a Water Service Investigator 3 in the Field Operations Division and has been an exceptional employee since joining BWS in January 2007 as a trades apprentice and has been selected as our 2024 BWS Employee of the Year. Whereas Brian has shown remarkable dedication and skill as he's worked his way up from a trades apprentice to a pipe fitter, then to a customer care division as a water service investigator, and finally returning to field operations in August of 2022 as a water service investigator 3, leading our leak detection team. And whereas Brian is a pivotal member of the leak detection team known for his leadership, expertise, and commitment to excellence, which greatly contributed to the success of BWS's satellite leak detection program. And members, you see every month a report of how we've actually improving on efficiency, investigating more points of interest, and finding more leaks in the system so that we can, field operations can proactively repair them. Whereas Brian has taken on roles beyond his job description, serving as a team leader, trainer, and mentor for new team members, managing the leak detection, satellite leak detection contract, and leading research and development for new leak detection equipment and technologies. And whereas under Brian's management, the BWS satellite leak detection program has significantly increased the number of leaks detected, reduced non-revenue water loss, saved customers money, and prevented property damage. And whereas Brian and his team have investigated 1,999 points of interest and identified 2,484 leaks demonstrating his proactive approach to water service investigation, his commitment to our protecting our precious our precious water resources. Whereas Brian's efforts have improved the efficiency of leak detection and contributed to water conservation, and showcasing his dedication to the community and the mission of the Board of Water Supply. And whereas the nomination of Brian acknowledges his exceptional expertise, dedication, and commitment, advancing BWS's efforts in water conservation and leak detection, bringing pride and honor to the department, his family, and friends. Now therefore it be resolved by the members of the Board of Water Supply, City and County of Honolulu, that we do hereby express to Brian our sincere appreciation for his outstanding service to the department and to the City and County of Honolulu. And be it further resolved that the members of this board express to Brian Chong our sincere congratulations upon his selection as the Board of Water Supply Employee of the Year for 2024. Congratulations, Brian.
What Glenn up to? Or?
Yeah, Glenn or Wayne, would you like to say a few words? I guess Jason, you're the member of the public.
It was a pleasure working with Brian. What I enjoyed was just giving him a task or a job and he would just run with it and improve it. Like with the satellite leak detection, I just asked him if he would be okay managing the contract, contacting the vendor, and he had no problems with that. He regularly just goes looking for new equipment, new technologies that'll help his team. And he's just a joy to work with. And I think you kind of see similarities between both Brian and Tara, in that they started in one place and then kind of took a different path. You know, Brian went the pipe fitting route, but started off with the pipe fitting route, but then ended up in leak detection. He kind of found his place, and you know, the Board of Water Supply kind of encourages that because you see a lot of employees here kind of transitioning to other jobs where they end up excelling at. So same like Brian and Tara. Thank you.
Yeah. Chair, if I could also add that, you know, a sign of a great leader is somebody that's willing to teach and share their knowledge and help grow others. And Brian has talked to me about reaching out to and sharing his knowledge and experience with even the other county water departments of the other islands. And when he goes to the Hawaii Waterworks Association conference next month in Kauai, that's his plan to actually meet with them and share his knowledge so that we can all, as a state, benefit from what he's learned. Thank you.
Such an important piece of the puzzle when we're talking about narrowing how much water is available for everybody. We're going to save every drop. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. Good job.
Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. Thank you, Ed. Moved by Ed. Any second? Okay. Thank you, Lance. Seconded by Lance. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Please note for the record. I'd also like to call for a 5-minute break so we can take some photos. Can I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Lance.
Second.
Second by Ed. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. 5-minute break. So we're back in regular session. Before we move on to items for information, I just wanted to say, you know, today's a special day. We get to recognize our manager of the year and employees of the year. And you know, one of the things that that goes by when we come in for these meetings as well are these me and Ernie got assigned these retirement awards. I got to tell you guys, like when you see people with 30 or 40 years of service, for the city. It's a really inspiring thing. And you know, every time I see one that comes up with multiple decades, I ask Ernie, you know, who this is and what they do. And we want to thank all of the staff in the room who take the time to do this kind of work and come in every day, day in and day out, and represent this organization so well. So just a word of thanks to everybody for doing that. And we appreciate you folks leading in the way you do. So mahalo. Yeah.
Here.
We're moving on to items for information. Item for information number one, and Madam Secretary, we have a couple of testimony for this one, yeah?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, so we'll come back to that, but update on the Board of Water Supply's response to the potential impacts of the Red Hill fuel contamination. Chair recognizes Joyce Lynn. Hello, Joyce.
Good afternoon, Chair and board members. This is the September 2024 Red Hill update. This past month, the City Council approved Resolution 24-216, urging weekly testing by the Navy to be sent to a qualified third-party laboratory for independent testing of TPH, or total petroleum hydrocarbons, PAHs, or polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and PFAS, which is per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, at all of their monitoring wells. The resolution also demands installation of additional wells to the west and northwest of the Red Hill bulk fuel storage facility, and submission of unredacted lab reports to the Board of Water Supply and the public. The Board of Water Supply attended the Red Hill subject matter experts meeting on September 4th, where we discussed the Navy's pilot study on soil vapor extraction, the Navy's monitoring well installation updates, and the detections of PAHs at our IAL wells. Since the detection of the PAHs in our IAL wells in June, the Board of Water Supply received a lot of inquiries and has provided informational briefings to various elected officials and community groups. As reported in our July board meeting, the Board of Water Supply was selected by the mayor as the permitting agency for underground storage tanks and tank systems under Ordinance 22-1, which was adopted in March of 2022. However, on September 6th, we received a letter from Mayor Blangiardi notifying us of the change in permitting agency from the Board of Water Supply to the Department of Environmental Services. Here is the latest progress diagram provided by the Navy Closure Task Force on their tank cleaning and closure efforts. The first set of tanks, tank 7 and 8, is in the process to get pressure washed, while the second set of tanks, tank 5 and 6, are in the process of being ventilated. Here are some updates that were presented by the Navy Closure Task Force at the Commission on Water Resources Management meeting on September 17. Shown here is their groundwater network. The blue arrow shows a suggested groundwater flow. And during the same CWAR meeting, it was mentioned that the Navy's groundwater model is scheduled to be published sometime this week. Also provided by the Navy Closure Task Force was these heat maps of TPHD detections around the Red Hill facility. It appears that the maps were selected to tailor a specific representation because there's some data missing between January 2022 through February 2023. Also mentioned during the CWAR meeting is that there's going to be 2 upcoming webinars hosted by the Navy Closure Task Force. A groundwater network webinar is scheduled for tomorrow, September 24th, via the Microsoft Teams. If you have their phone apps, a link to the meeting would be shared with you directly in the app. However, if you do not have the app, the Navy Task Force said that they will be releasing a media advisory with the link posted shortly. I have not been able to find that link as of 2 o'clock.
The second webinar will be on October 16, where they will go over their groundwater flow model. Here are upcoming events that the Board of Water Supply will be attending. The FTAC meeting will be in the Pikake Ballroom at on October 9th in the afternoon from 1 to 5 p.m. This concludes my update for today. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Members, any questions? Okay, maybe just a couple. Either you or Ernie, maybe you can remind us kind of the history of this groundwater flow model and why the data is so important in the conversation we're having around Red Hill and Halawa Valley, given the current set of constraints.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And Joyce, jump in anytime if I miss anything. It's a story that goes back actually about 8 years. Back in 2015, the state of Hawaii Department of Health, the US EPA, the Navy, and the Defense Logistics Agency executed a voluntary agreement between those parties called the Administrative Order and Consent, 2015 ALC. And that AOC, there was a statement of work, and that was that AOC came about as a result of the January 2014 leak from tank number 5, about 27,000, maybe as much as 40,000 gallons of JPA jet fuel. And because of that, the response was to try to look at what to do to make the facility not take it out of service, but actually how do you keep the facility operating in a way that is protective of the environment for another 25, 35 years. So that was the goal of the 2015 ALC. And part of that was actually to do a groundwater flow model and then also do something called fate and contaminant transport modeling, try to see where the fuel that leaked out of tank number 5 might be traveling in the underground aquifer. And a groundwater flow model is kind of a model that's trying to replicate what's happening in the complex geology of our Hawaiian aquifers, trying to see how water could flow. Is it flowing from Mauka to Makai? So Joyce, if you go back to the arrow, Mauka to Makai, or could it be flowing across Halawa Valley, moving toward the Board of Water Supply wells? That was always a question that I raised going back to 2014, January 2014. So here you see the blue. This is a Navy slide that was presented just recently, last week, to the Commission on Water Resource Management. But you can see the blue arrows kind of represent, I think, what their thoughts on GW flow is groundwater flow. If you look at the legend, you can see the mountains are to the right, the ocean is to the left. So Mauka to Makai is the direction we're saying. But then, and then they say it kind of eventually meanders going back toward Pearl Harbor, it appears from this graphic. So our question was, Halawa Shaft is only 5,000 feet to the northwest of the Red Hill fuel tanks. And Joyce, if you can point out where the tanks would be right around that area. So that 5,000 feet to the northwest is our Halawa Shaft. Then we have our Aiea Gulch wells, Aiea wells, and Halawa wells. Aiea wells is where we had the recent pH, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon detections. So that's why the groundwater flow model is an important tool. It's trying to replicate real world complex conditions in a simplified fashion. So a groundwater flow model report apparently is going to come out tomorrow, be issued by the Navy tomorrow. The last groundwater flow model report we have reviewed and provided comments was 4 years ago in 2020. So apparently another version of that report is going to come out and we'll be providing comments.
Okay, so we don't have any more information than that with respect to this.
Other than that, we have not seen the most recent version of our groundwater flow model.
Okay. Well, we're looking forward to more information. I mean, I think the idea of where water is flowing and the science behind it has been something that we've been talking about since I started here on the board. And the understanding of that is really, I think, one of the key pieces of this puzzle, right? To really get a sense as to what the safety quotient may be with respect to pumping.
And using this map, Chair, Joyce, can you point northwest direction across Halava Valley from the Red Hill tanks, where that would be? Going that way, maybe a little bit more, across the valley. But you can also see the green dots are their Sentinel monitor wells. And you notice in this map that you don't have a lot of green dots between the Red Hill tanks, which is outlined, the parcel is outlined in orange, and our Halava Shaft, one of our largest water sources. There's like a huge gap of information. So the groundwater model that's going to be presented will be based on current understanding. But as more monitored wells get put in and more data is obtained, then that model, which is a simplified representation of complicated real world conditions, will have to get updated. But we really want to see if that groundwater model report that's coming out maybe tomorrow, it's going to say that groundwater flow is like those blue arrows as portrayed in this Navy slide here. Because it would be very disappointing to actually see that, because when you look at actually the regional elevations of the top of the water table in the aquifer, it actually, from where the Red Hill facility, that's about 18 feet above sea level. The top of the freshwater lens is about 18 feet above sea level at that location. And then it slopes down as you go further to the northwest, going down to 16 and eventually to 15 feet above sea level. So I kind of use a simplified thinking here that water flows from uphill to lower elevations, from higher to lower elevations. Water flows downhill. Given the complexity of our Hawaiian geology, can you say definitively water is not going to flow across the Halava Valley in the underground aquifer? And that water flowing in the aquifer could be transporting contaminants from the leaks over the 80-year history of this facility, and that's our concern.
Can you, in previous meetings, and maybe Erwin, you want to jump in here, in previous meetings, we've talked about understanding a little bit about the relationship between Halava Shaft, which is pumping in excess of 10 million gallons a day, and the water levels in the relationship to what they could read at some of the monitoring wells at Red Hill.
Yeah.
Can you just remind us as to like how you see the relationship and what the concern was at the onset of this spill?
So, Chair, I think, and I can respond to the question, or jump in anytime too. So you see Halava Shaft on this, the label for Halava Shaft, that's Board of Water Supply Halava Shaft. Then you can see a pink dot there at the Red Hill, close to the Red Hill tanks, and is RHS. I think that stands for Red Hill Shaft, Navy Red Hill Shaft. So over two separate times, the USGS, so the United States Geological Survey, did something called a synoptic water level survey. They basically kind of had us and the Navy pump or not pump. Like say, for example, they asked us to pump Halava Shaft hard. They also kind of shut down Red Hill Shaft, and they wanted to see if they could measure a response or change in the water table elevation in response to Halava Shaft pumping hard. And they did the same thing in reverse. They said, Navy, pump Red Hill Shaft hard, Board of Water Supply, shut off Halava Shaft, and just see if you can see a response. So sure enough, both times it showed Halava Shaft pumping, Red Hill Shaft off. They could see a response on the other side of Halava Valley, on the Red Hill side of the valley, and vice versa. When Red Hill Shaft was pumping, you could measure a response on the other side on the Halava side of Halava Valley. So we think there's all one connected aquifer here, hydraulically connected. Because if it wasn't hydraulically connected, when you pump hard over here, you're not gonna see any response on this side, or vice versa, pump hard here and measure a response here to the top of the water table changing. But that wasn't the case, and that's well documented by the USGS work.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And I think, first of all, I want to say thank you to the whole staff who's been monitoring this. I know that it is 7 days a week. There's meetings on the weekend sometime and on and on. But also I would say that we were talking about this right before the meeting started, but one of the challenges here is that there's just not enough information in the field to know who's right and who's wrong, and that we want to just be really cautious as we move through this process because of the stakes and the fact that we know that there are thousands of gallons of missing jet fuel in the aquifer. That's why it's important that we're drilling monitoring wells. I want to thank Ed Sniffen for allowing wells to be drilled on HDOT property.
Yeah, thank you, Ed.
Yeah, we want to be able to, put as many wells in the field as possible to understand the nature of this as we go, and any data that is possible to get our hands on based on, the current techniques that people much smarter than me understand to be true. But until that time, we need to move very, very cautiously because our fresh drinking water is at stake.
Chair, I just want to say that we cannot get it wrong. Some will say that water won't get across, the contaminants won't go across Halawa Valley. They better prove it to us, not just prove it by some simplified computer model, but by real data that shows that ain't going to happen. Because if we get it wrong, the consequence to the border water supply system is going to be dire.
Right. We start every meeting with clean and affordable water, and that's our promise to our customers. So we need to make sure we get that right. Yep. Okay, members, any other questions, comments?
Just a real quick question.
Ed?
On the map itself, it showed a white crosshatch for proposed wells, but I didn't see any. So are there none proposed by the Navy?
Let's go back to the Navy graphic, Navy slide, Joyce, with the red hill. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question because they put the slide together and it shows what they want to present.
Yeah, so I was just wondering if from their perspective, none were necessary.
Joyce, can we get to
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, no, not this one. This one, I think.
On the side, it shows potential wells, but I don't see any in white up there.
That's a good question. Now, either that or it's lost in there, but I don't see.
So I know that I've seen some sites, Ed, where they talk about sectors where they want to drill. And I don't want to speak for them, but I think some of that corresponds to land that they have access to be able to drill. And so one of the things that we've talked about is how do we potentially work together to allow for the kind of the greatest capacity of monitoring wells that span that whole valley floor, understanding that there are a number of places that are really hard to get our hands on because it's already warehouses or a prison or an active site that is making concrete and the like. So we're trying to help to figure that out.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ed, look, that is a very question. I don't see any white dots there.
Ernie, if I may, so actually those potential wells were shown in their slide, their presentation slide deck in the previous slide. If I may share in this link, it should take us to.
And I think they're looking at some DOT rights of way to install some wells.
This was their slide deck for the presentation. And as you can see, it kind of progressively adds in all the different components. But here are the areas for potential wells.
Right.
The shading is where they're thinking about putting wells in that shaded area.
So these areas. But a lot of it are central around the south.
Yeah, and I just noticed, by, there's a kind of a gap, yeah, between, along the, just, other side of the H3, between those two shaded areas, so.
I think that's one of the reasons is like when we were working on the Red Hill Vi initiative, we talked about like the total number of wells that might be needed, but the placement was still up for discussion because of the complicated nature of the
Land ownership.
land ownership, right? And also too, apparently in some of the if contamination is found, then who does the contamination liability lie with, right?
Does it belong to?
Who does it belong to? So there's a number of questions in that field, but we think that the best vehicle to have that discussion is the Red Hill Vi initiative because it was kind of broad-based support in and around it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of
Too
the
bad that,
key-
too bad that didn't pass last year. We'll see if there'll be more opportunity for it perhaps in the coming session. I do have a question actually for Joyce, sorry, on the previous slide. So was the shaded areas also that you pointed out one where there was potential detection, but were the other ones also areas of PAH detection from the Navy slide deck that you just showed? So you pointed out the one in the middle and said that was a potential well site, but for the other, yeah, all those other ones, are those all PAH detection areas? I was just looking at the legend.
No, not, I think
it's that other side with the colored
Sure.
circles. Yeah.
it's the orange circles
Oh,
over
okay.
here.
All right.
Yeah, it's a little confusing, the legends.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. I was shocked by that, which is why I wanted to ask.
But one thing on this slide, you notice pH detections at the Red Hill Fuel Facility, also in areas where they have TPH detections too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thanks,
that
everyone.
clarification,
Yeah.
Joyce.
Thank you, folks.
And then, sorry, and then a little information. If you have the Navy Kosher Task Force app, it was just mentioned to me that the link for the webinar for tomorrow on their groundwater, I think it's just the groundwater network is released. So if you have the app, you can check it out.
You guys haven't seen it anywhere else.
I have not seen it, but I'll keep looking.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you. Joy, we have a couple of pieces of testimony.
Yes, sir, we have, typical in person, and we have a written testimony from Meredith that was included in the testimony packet.
Okay. Susan. Welcome.
So in order for us to find out about Red Hill, we have to steal slides from Seaworm.
So we're doing it. Yeah. It's in the public domain.
Yeah.
Susan, last time you talked about why you went to lead last meeting, and I'm just wondering if you can just refresh us as to why you're now in the lead space versus the TPH or the PAH space, just to remind everybody why we're here.
Well, I did have some opening remarks, though.
Go for it.
I still find it very concerning that we are where we are today. Based on the tech memo by Chris Waldron and the Board of Water Supply's third-party consultants, it appears that we could be back at square one. What can be salvaged from the sampling results? 1, there are detections. 2, there are exceedances. And the only thing in question right now are the numerical values. The Kuleana is on the regulators. So moving forward, we just have to pay more attention to we, the public, doing the jobs of the regulators to try and keep us up to date with what's going on. Now, the reason I switched to lead, based on Chris Waldron's report and residual chlorine, latex gloves, not quenching the samples, and all of these different pieces that are allowing them to say that their data is flawed, even though they don't use those terms, okay? But I think that what we really have to think about is that the numerical values are probably flawed. Okay, so if they say they didn't remove the chlorine and that caused the detections to be detections, if you would have removed the chlorine and done it correctly, could the numbers have been higher in TPH, okay? So going back to what I used to present, TPH, because of those things and the way they dismiss you, I decided, well, let's go to lead. Lead is regulated. Lead is dangerous. It's a neurotoxin. They didn't say anything about lead, so that's where I'm going now. Because for me, there's no more sense on going TPH because they're just going to say whatever they say until they do something right. We won't know when. So I'm going to try, because I sent in 3 different pieces, okay? This one here says lead detections, May through June 2024, okay? And these are lead detections in schools, child development centers, and churches, just for those 2 months. Detections, okay? Even the high lines do not, or the high little squares here, don't hit 15. So my premise was always that something's there and lead is regulated for 15 parts per billion, but we're talking about kids and churches, okay? And then the second slide just shows it by date. And the interesting part is these clumps here and these clumps here. And I used to always talk about patterns and clusters. And I didn't go into figuring out why. I just said, something's going on. Not my job. Okay, so then the next step, I've got the extended drinking water monitoring. These are exceedances. And last month, even though we had to go real fast, I had a page that led us into the presentation. So these are exceedances now. And I have zones that have schools. I looked at the zones first with schools. And we have D1, Pearl Harbor Kai, E1, Montessori Center of the Pearl Harbor. And then F1 has preschool and the elementary school. Oh, it also has Carolina kids. And that's important because there's a lot of kids that go there a lot of times after school. Okay. So March of 2022 to January of 2024. These are all the exceedances. Yes, it's a 2-year span. We don't know if anything was done about them, but it's still data that we haven't seen before, unless you all have, okay? Then here, I put each date right up here, so you could actually tell when it actually occurred. And then down here, the addresses, okay? And then, of course, last month I showed the recent exceedances. And I said, hopefully, we don't know anybody that lives in those 2 addresses. So what I did on your cover sheets is I explained what I was doing, why I thought it was important. Because if the lead sampling protocol is not being followed, which is according to the Environmental Protection Network, that we don't know if these results are correct. So I'm just going on the premise that there's detections and there are exceedances. The EPA cannot absolutely say that the Navy is following the lead sampling protocol based on the last CRI meeting, which I transcribed. And even though these detections show a strong pattern. So my belief is that the regulators aren't monitoring the sampling collections by the contractor, ACOM. And then after that, I just put some material for you to read about the health effects. And I put some stuff in there about kids. I think that's probably one of my major things that I'm concerned about are kids and us not really knowing, you know, are they flushing? Are they changing out faucets, spigots? We don't know. But there's also human beings living in those addresses. So all I say, people ask me, Susan, is your water okay? And I say, it hasn't killed my cats yet. But we do know that there were instances where pets were getting affected when all of this started. We don't know anymore, but and then the news on my social media yesterday was that people in Monalua Valley are seeing and smelling their water. They're just concerned. So I'm just letting you know that social media also keeps me up to date. Any questions?
Very good. Don't move. Members, any questions? Okay.
I'm not gonna stop.
Thank you. I have maybe just a couple. So I'm looking at this Ernie and Erwin, this last graph over here. I think the red line is
The 15?
the 15 parts per billion, and anything above it is an exceedance. I'm just trying to understand, like, if this is data from our wells, which it is not, what would we be required to do based on these numbers?
Erosion control, that's one of the things. Correct?
Aaron, I think we would notify the owner of the property too.
Well, that would be good.
Yeah, please.
Heaven forbid we do the right thing.
Your samples.
Okay, thanks.
Some of us take it.
So in this particular case on this graph, okay, we had results like this. Number one, we would have to check each and every one of these locations to verify the cause of the particular lead level. Certainly, we would be collecting water samples from our sources as well to make sure that our wells are not serving this kind of water. Now, if our wells are not serving this kind of water, we would already know that through our regular testing. So this would be something that's site specific.
The property.
This is like a fixture, a coupling, something though.
Right.
Right.
And, you know, we do our own lead testing in accordance with the lead copper rule. We've had one or two few cases where we have come across homes that have conditions in that had this kind of high level, but that's because the homeowner took a sample from a tap that they don't use for very long periods of time, or something that they just recently installed something and they used too much solder or something. So we've had cases like that, but it's not this number, this kind of number.
I think the other fundamental difference is that the premise plumbing is not owned by the Board of Water Supply. It's owned by the individual owner of the property. But in this case of the military base, the premise plumbing is all owned by the Navy.
I don't know if any, right, but it could be, if it's a, yeah.
There was one meeting where, or I wish I knew who said what, where they said,
Would you like to come back to?
sorry, where they said the premise, I'm almost sure it was the EPA, the premise plumbing is not Navy's Kuleana. Because from the meter to inside would be the contractor of the housing managers. Okay, but anything before the meter, go ahead.
But if it's an old building,
True,
that would
That's
still
Navy.
be Navy's,
right,
to be honest.
right. And you'll see there's buildings in there too, and yeah. I was just talking about the housing, how they're talking to.
Some of the new housing, they maybe outsource the construction and gave a long-term operating contract.
Sometimes they're privatized housing, so
It's privatized.
housing is managed by a third
But-
party.
But not all the housing,
Not all of it's privatized.
or if it's a old building on the base, it's,
Some of the privatized housing included renovation of old buildings, so it's not just new. So some of the privatized housing is also older buildings.
I think in general, premise plumbing is the responsibility of the owner of the property. But
You know, for the board
on
of
a
water,
voluntary basis, but
It's different because they have these larger operational contracts with third parties who may have full responsibility of all the improvements, not just the water system, but the structural system of the house and everything else.
they did that report on premise plumbing. I don't know if you remember that, right after the FTAC. There was like, I don't know how many pages it was. So they did it, and they said they dissected water heaters because that was one of the concerns, that maybe there was residual fuel inside of the water heaters.
Right.
But there's a whole, it's complicated as to what they did, why they did it, and what were they trying to prove. So they set up their hypothesis to prove their hypothesis. They don't set up a scientific experiment saying, this is what we think. Now we're going to do these things, and then either we find out that what we think was right, or we find out that what we thought was wrong, we go on from there. So they don't do scientific kinds of things. They mostly try and prove their points. That's what happened with the chlorine residual, or whatever you want to call it. They said they did a root cause analysis, but when you read the whole thing, it wasn't really. It was just, they just plugged in words.
tech memo.
Yeah, the tech memo.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we want to thank you for your time today. And
Anybody else?
well, just a word of thanks for keeping an eye on the contaminants that are reported on, that are in exceedance on the Safe Waters website. We know there's a ton of data sitting
That's the
there.
only thing I use.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for coming out today. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then I'm not going to read the Meredith Wilson written testimony. You folks have it in your packet. I would just note for staff, Kim and Joy, the last line there is a question there as to whether or not there's been response by any of the regulators to some of the notes provided. So if we can just make a note to make sure that we respond to Meredith in a timely manner. Thank you. Are there any other last minute testimony?
Thank you, Board of Water Supply.
Thank
You do a
you.
wonderful job.
Thank you. Sorry,
We only trusted people in.
Thank you. We appreciate that. There's people who work really hard to make sure that we have the right data in our hands to make sure the drinking water is safe. I want to move on to items for information number 2, the financial update for quarter ended in June 30, 2024. And then we have to push this off a month because of last month's meeting. So Chair recognizes Kaliko Lamki for our update. Thank you for your patience, Kaliko.
Good afternoon, Board Chair members. Nico Lumke, Acting Waterworks Controller, here to report the financial performance for the period July 2023 to June 2024. Actual revenues coming in at 275.4 million versus budgeted revenues of 263 million. Operating costs are 221.9 million versus budgeted costs of 241.7 million. And the actual net revenue, 53.5 million versus budgeted net revenue of 21.3 million. These are the cost drivers, again, for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2024. We have the actual column on the left as well as the budgeted column on the right, both columns in millions. The first line, we have personnel, actual 43.9 versus budgeted of 53.9. Materials, supplies, and services, actual of 76.9 million versus a budget of 82.5 million. Equipment at 3 million actual versus 2.5 budget. Debt service, 36.7 million actual versus a budget of 38.2 million. And lastly, utilities, actual 29.8 million versus a budget of 32.7 million. The slide shows our operating budget versus actual, again, for the same period, fiscal year 2024. Budgeted expenditures are 241.7 million versus the actual expenditures of 221.9 million. And of the 19.8 million variance are due to the various divisions. On the left, field ops, 6.2 million under budget, followed by fixed charges, 4.3 million under budget, and capital projects of 2.3 million under budget. On the right side of the page, we have information technology coming in at 2.2 million under budget, water resources at 1.9 million under budget, ESO 1.8 million under budget, and finance 1.2 million under budget. The slide shows a pie chart for the total operating expenditures for the same period, June 30, 2024, 221.9 million. The biggest piece of the pie is the bottom right portion, materials, supplies, and services, 76.9 million or 35%. Followed by the fixed charges on the upper left, 61.4 million or 28% of the pie. Moving over to the right, we have personnel services coming in at 43.9 million or 20%. Bottom left, white shaded portion of the pie, debt service at 36.7 million or 16%. And that small sliver there, equipment at 3 million or about 1% of the pie. This slide shows our bar chart, again, for operating expenditures by category. We have that budget bar is that light, I guess, purple color on the right, and the actual is the darker, I guess, purple magenta color. We have the same category, so we have the personnel services, actual under budget, materials, supplies, and the services, actual under budget, equipment slightly over budget, followed by debt service and fixed charges, both on them. This slide shows our budgeted operating expenditures for fiscal year 2024. We have the bar chart. So the yellow shaded bar is our budgeted expenditures by month, and that blue shaded bar shows our actual expenditures by month. Cutting across that chart from bottom left to right, that green line is our budgeted expenditures cumulative. And that red line, again, cutting from the bottom left to top right, is our expenditures actual cumulative. You can see that the difference there is about 8.17% under budget. This slide shows our budgeted operating revenues for fiscal year 2024. So we have that orange bar represents our budgeted revenues by month, and that blue shaded bar is our actual revenues by month. And once again, that bottom, the red line coming across from the bottom left to top right is our budgeted revenues cumulative for the fiscal year, and that blue line coming from the bottom left to top right is our actual revenues cumulative. And you can see that we're slightly above budget by 4.69%. Mahalo for your time. I'll be happy to take any questions or comments.
Any questions?
Questions?
John?
Can you go to page 7? Budget versus actual. I'm just curious, what happened in January and February? Just curious. But the large discrepancy between budgeted and actual expenditure.
You're looking at the bar chart
Yeah,
between,
the yellow and the blue.
Yeah. For January and February.
Just wondering why there's like a much bigger discrepancy versus typical.
I'd have to go back to actually check on those particular months. I think just in June, it's, a lot of the divisions throughout the entire fiscal year were just basically under budget to various things, but I can go back and take a deeper dive on those months.
And just one more question, like the big 5-year rate adjustments we did, a lot of it was hinged on the daily working capital, getting that back up to a comfortable level. Do you know, I mean, it must have spiked with this coming in under budget with everything, but do you know where we are as far as
Yeah, good question. So we're currently going through our annual financial audit with the auditors. So we hope to have the final audit report probably, I think we're targeting like mid-November. So once we have those final audited figures, then we can go ahead and go through the working capital calculation for the fiscal year.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, Kaliko, maybe just on that discrepancy, check for timing of different things, maybe a payment was delayed or.
Looks like the right time of year for that.
Yeah.
Looks like some of it caught up in March too, yeah, where you
Yeah.
see the blue.
Yeah,
versus-
and then try,
Yeah.
so maybe something was a little later. We'll check,
Okay.
yeah.
I'd be curious to see folks, just in like, in a general sense, I mean, we appreciate people being as mindful as they are and coming in under budget. And I'm just want to make sure that we get you folks weighing in on, is this like under budget because like not enough employees to get all the work done that you have on the plate that you want done in terms of CIP and those kinds of things? Or is this just people still being really vigilant and really sensitive to, every cost cutting measure? I know Ernie drives a 15-year-old car and Ray won't let him get a new BWS shirt yet. So I know that people are like, I mean, we appreciate it. I mean, that during COVID and during times when things were leaned out and we hadn't raised rates because of COVID, things were locked down. But I just want to make sure that like we understand the nature of why we're under and that we're still getting work done even though we're under.
Yeah, I think, I think
what I mean?
BWS employees tend to be very frugal. And they kind of remind me periodically, my car is 14 years old. But well, just looking at the operating expenditures by category, personnel services where personnel costs is where I think we have a big gap there between budget versus actual.
Right.
And we continue to work to try to fill positions, and we budget what we think we can fill, but we're still falling short of trying to get all those positions filled. So that might be one area of challenge that's causing this gap to grow. And the other categories that seemed a little closer, just in personnel services. I think we're running, I don't see anybody, Michelle here, but maybe still at having almost 200 vacancies in the organization.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But we'll look at this more closely.
Thank you. Thank you. Other questions? Thank you, Kaliko.
Thanks, Kaliko.
We're moving on to Item number 3, capital improvement program, semi-annual update. Chair recognizes Patrick Chun and Raylan Nakabayashi.
Good afternoon, Chair Naalehu and board members. I am Patrick Chun, the Acting Program Administrator for Capital Projects Division, and I'll be presenting the information on how the FY24 CIP budget was executed. Raylan Nakabayashi will be addressing revisions to the FY24 CIP budget. The first table on the top shows the contracts awarded through the 4 quarters of FY24, broken down by design and construction contracts. There were no land purchases in FY24. The last column indicates budgeted amounts for these line items. For FY24, approximately 155 million was awarded compared to the 179 million budgeted. Second table shows contracts completed in FY24, again broken down by quarters, and design and construction contracts. Total amount for completed contracts for FY24 was approximately 7.8 million. The third table shows in FY24 there was a total of 324 ongoing design projects with a total value of 163 million and a total of 123 ongoing construction projects with a total of 547 million. On this slide, the top table shows the construction projects awarded in the 3rd quarter, the budgeted amounts, and the contract award amount. There were no design contracts awarded in the 3rd quarter. The first 2 projects listed do not show a budget amount because these are work orders for a pump and renewal and replacement line item that had a budget of approximately 4.1 million. The individual work orders are based on requests from our Water System Operations Division, and these construction projects are implemented through an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity, or IDIQ contract. The total for the 3rd quarter is 23.2 million awarded out of 22.7 million budgeted, not considering the approximate 500,000 amount used from the 4.1 million IDIQ budget. The second table shows the design and construction projects completed in the 3rd quarter, including completion date and contract amount. The total for completed projects in the 3rd quarter of FY24 is approximately 1.6 million. This slide shows the construction projects awarded in the 4th quarter of FY24, including budgeted amounts and awarded amounts. Similarly, there are blanks for various projects in the budget amount column because these amounts are included in a fund intended to cover multiple sites. They include the construction of monitoring wells from a 7 million budget, well pump replacement from an approximate 4.1 million budget, and various facilities renovation and upgrade projects from a 5 million budget. The total awarded amount is 48.4 million compared to the 31.8 budgeted amount. The difference was made up from the FY24 contract adjustment account and construction cost index account. The contract adjustment account is in place to cover design and construction change orders and budget shortages in awarding design and construction contracts. The construction cost index account is in place to also cover shortages in the budget in awarding construction contracts that come in higher than anticipated. On this slide, the top table shows the design projects awarded in the 4th quarter of FY24, including the budgeted amounts and awarded amounts. P&E indicates planning and engineering. The total amount is 11.4 million compared to the budgeted 12.8 million. The second table indicates design and construction projects completed in the 4th quarter of FY24, including completion dates and contract amounts. The total of the completed construction projects in the 4th quarter was 1.3 million. This slide shows the percent of the FY24 CIP budget executed at each quarter and how it compared to the previous years. At the end of FY24, 86% of the budget amount for new CIP contracts were executed. Some projects were deferred to FY25 to pursue use of federal funding instead of using water ratepayer funding. Now I'll be turning the presentation over to Ray, who will discuss revisions that were made to the FY24 CIP budget.
Hello again, Chair and members.
Well,
Okay, so Pat talked about all of the execution that we were able to do on the fiscal year 23-24 CIP budget. And I'm just gonna briefly cover how, I guess, we made the money available to do all of that. So as the board is aware, we adopted the original budget May of 2023, appropriating $212.6 million across the various funds. And we came back to the board for budget amendment number 1 because we changed the total of the budget. So budget amendment number 1 came in at an appropriation of $223.9 million across the various funds. And as it reads currently in our budget resolutions, the manager and the chief engineer can adjust the method of funding in the budget, provided that the total amount stays the same, right? And we treat that total amount by fund. So as long as if some projects that are operating funded run under, but we have others that run over, the manager can do what we call, I guess, memo amendments to move that money around as long as he doesn't touch the bottom line that the board approved. And as long as he's not adding projects or we're not adding projects that the board had not seen. So in summary, this was budget amendment number 1. We did a public hearing. We got a new budget resolution approved. And this was to add projects, additional funds on project number 5. Project 41 was a rebudget from the prior year. So was project 42. Project 43 was a brand new project. That was so that we could start on our water master plan. Project number 8 was a reduction of funds on project number 8 and a push forward to do that in the next fiscal year. And then adjustments across the construction cost index count, reflective of the changes we are making in the amendment. So this is budget amendment number 2. We came to the board on this one as an info only. We did not touch the bottom line, but we re-described project number 41, which was for the Wilhelmina Reservoir Replacement Project. I don't know if anyone remembers, but this is the one where we're building the new reservoir inside the old reservoir. So actually the floor elevation of the reservoir is changing. So the way that it was described originally was the Wilhelmina Rise 811 reservoir replacement. Since we changed the design and we're gonna go reservoir within a reservoir, the floor elevation rose 4 feet to 815. And then here's where we do the shifting of funds within the funds and the projects that the board previously authorized, but this is to make money available where it is needed. As you could see with Pat, it's quite dynamic on when we take things out to bid on construction and how much things actually come in at. So as required, if we decide not to pursue a project in the current fiscal year, for examples 2, 15, 19, 21, 33, and they were being deferred to future years, we can take that money and move it into the contract adjustments account. And that is where money is made available when needed, when projects are coming in over bid, or there are current year change orders on contracts that require funding. So on number 2, it was not that the money was not needed, as you could see from Pat's awards, and I think this is Q3. 2 wells were awarded, and then those are the only 2 going to be done that year. So the funding could move and be used for something else in the current year, since there was a balance left on that line. Moving on to amendment number 4. Same in concept. These projects were not going to be pursued in fiscal year 24. Therefore, we could take the amounts appropriated, move them to the contract adjustments account, and move forward with the projects that were going to be awarded. So projects 27, 39, and 3 all moved forward into fiscal year 25. And that is it on the memo budget amendment. Sorry, I should pause and stay on this side. So as you can see, though, the amount in total far right stays the same. And across the different types of funds, the totals do not change. It's just a matter of moving project monies between lines or into the contract adjustments account. Any questions, though? I'd be happy to answer them.
Members, any questions? Maybe just a general one, Ray. You know, I don't wanna belabor the slides in terms of going down to the granular level of like what the budget and contracted amounts are. You see that this huge, and we've talked about this before, there's kind of this huge variance. Are you folks still seeing that in like what you think something's gonna cost and then the thing is like completely blown up past what the internal folks are saying?
I think we still see it. I don't think, yeah, I think it's hard to predict. I mean, we were, I think, shocked on bid opening on a couple at least projects this fiscal year. But yeah, it's really hard to tell which ones, like we had a dam project that one of the dam renovation projects open,
You want to number one.
yeah, the 2 and 3, I think,
Three.
right? It was it 1 or 2? It was, I don't know if it's in the fourth quarter awards. Let me see if I can find it. But yeah,
Sort of thing go by in here somewhere.
comparative bids, you know, across the people who bid, I mean, that is just what the market's demanding. So I don't think the bids were off. I think it was just
Yeah.
much more work than we thought when we put it out.
The Warner Reservoir and number one dam improvements.
Yeah.
Budgeted at 5.2, it came in at 16.7.
0.7, and then the bids that we opened were all in that range, right? So it's,
So it wasn't
Yeah.
an outlier.
yeah.
We're kind of grouped.
And know something about it.
Yeah. We win a lot of bids right now.
But it's also, we go out in the fourth quarter too, so it's a busy time.
Yeah. But what I did see is on one of the slides, it showed 50% of the projects went out by the third quarter, which is really a significant adjustment and improvement since from the previous years when they were only about 20%. So it's huge. What was the difference this year?
Capital projects and all the other divisions, I have to give them a lot of credit. We in ESO went through a very difficult growing, I lost a lot of and the divisions came through to help try to balance that. They knew that we were short-staffed in the procurement office and that on 2 people awarding 90% of the budget in the fourth quarter was just not. We run a 6-person office. I was down to 2 people at one point. So I think our divisions came through to really help get things to us, knowing that it was taking us much longer. We were like 30% staffing for a little bit, but that's all we had, so we had to work with it. And then also, as part of like, you saw some projects are strategically deferred, that was also to help balance the workload. So what can we do this year? What is the most important? And can we push some of this? And when we push it, we're talking about taking it out in July, August, instead of taking it out in March. So they really worked with us on that, knowing that we didn't have a full component of staffing.
Yeah. So, and the reason this caught my eye is historically for DOT, we would see a pretty much a flat curve all year, and then fourth quarter we bomb every project out, which was not good for us from a workload perspective, but also not from a cost perspective either. Industry was already busy, but we've thrown 30 projects out there for 10 million each. Makes it really difficult for us to get good pricing. So love the way that this graph adjusted to make sure we get the best pricing and manage workload as much as possible.
It's a testament to the capital project staff and executive support office.
Really appreciate the work. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you just stay there though. Moving on to item number 4, fiscal year 2024 claims management summary. Time, Chair recognizes Raymond Bayashi, aloha.
So, thank you, members. If you give me just a second, I will bring up my PowerPoint. Okay, so just a little bit of background on how we handle claims. This is from the Water Research Foundation, and essentially tort law holds a person or entity to a defined and certain standard of care when other persons or property are injured because of a failure to uphold that standard of care. The result is the person who failed is held liable. But when it comes to a water utility, it's different state to state. And determining, I guess, what that standard of care is and how the utility can be held liable. So in the state of Hawaii, these are the how we handle torts. This is the instructions given out by the judicial system to members of juries on the torts or for civil jury. So plaintiffs must prove by a preponderance of the evidence that the defendants was or were negligent and that such negligence was a legal cause of the plaintiff's injuries and or damages. The plaintiffs must also prove the nature and extent of their injuries and or damages. So for us, we handle all claims presented against the board in this same way. We look for these elements, right? What was the cause of the injury or damages? Have they quantified the injuries or damages in dollars? Was the board a part of that cause? And then was the board essentially negligent? Was there a duty that we had here and was there a breach of duty? So how do we manage claims at the Board of Water Supply? Under the Executive Support Office, there is a risk management office. And I've got a departmental risk manager position and a claims management specialist position, and they'll handle all of the liability claims presented to the board. This office also handles workers' comp, but specific to the presentation today, this is on like those liability type claims. And then when you look at the ESO budget, there is a line specific to claims for personal injury and property damage. So just amounts paid, a 5-year expenditure history on claims. Last fiscal year, we paid out 459,000 or just under 460,000 in claims from that object code. As you saw in Kaliko's presentation, that's why I kind of like these year-end ones all together. One of the places that was under budget was my office. And as a help to explain some of the variance, we budget an amount, but we can never really foresee how many claims will be presented, how many will actually close. So last year was a year where I only paid out 460,000 in claims, but as you can see, that really can change year over year. It just depends on what comes through. These are just our from a 30,000 foot level loss runs. So how many claims are presented to us related to each of these fiscal years, and how many we close and how many remain open. So for right now, fiscal year 24 had 67 claims thus far presented related to dates of loss or injury in fiscal year 24. 26 of those have been closed, leaving open for us 41. We still have some claims open from fiscal years 23, 22, and 21 as well. And that is separate from our automotive, or I keep separate automotive kind of loss runs or liability on the automotive side. As you folks know, I guess not reflective in how much we spend on equipment in the past couple of years, because we've been really diligent about keeping that down. But we do have a very large fleet of vehicles and equipment out on the road. So I do keep the automotive, the accidents that we may get into, separate in loss runs. So last year, thus far, I've been presented with 14 vehicle claims, closed 6. We've got 8 left open. And we still have 1 left from fiscal year 23 and then 1 from fiscal year 20. And that is it on the claims management summary, unless there are any questions.
Members, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a lot of gratitude. Great job.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that was my last one.
Okay, moving on to item number 5, invitation to Imagine a Day Without Water. On September 28th, 2024, Chair recognizes Kathleen Eliapainui. Aloha, Kathleen.
Aloha, Chair. Mahalo, board members. So something a little lighthearted. This Saturday, we're going to have our 5th annual Imagine a Day Without Water at Kapolei Regional Park. And it's a free, family-friendly community event in observance of the concept of One Water Hawaii. It integrates the types of water available: drinking, wastewater, stormwater, and freshwater and seawater, and our collective responsibility to protect, preserve, and improve these waters in our built and natural environments. About 20 state and county agencies, community organizations, and volunteer groups are teaming up to host this activity-filled day. We will promote conservation with rain barrel and xeriscape workshops. Participating agencies include Department of Agriculture, DLNR, with support from the Commission on Water Resource Management and Division of Forestry and Wildlife. City and county participants are the Mayor's Office of Climate Change, DFM, and HFD, along with HECO. HFD and HECO will be talking about their PSP. We really wanted them to attend this one, given the issues out on the Leeward Coast. We felt was important. So we hope you can make it. I just want to give a big shout out to my team, especially Stephen Nordstrom, who took this event and has grown it from a couple of booths at Tamarind Park down on Bishop Street. And Gene knows your team's been there since day one and has grown it to over 20 agencies now. And now we're moving it around. Last year we had it at the Waihua Freshwater Park, and this year we're going to be at Kapolei. Next year we hope to be at Windward perhaps. But we want to move it around. People have a maximum. We were at Kapolina Beach Homes for a disaster prep fair this past Saturday. We got great response, so we hope a lot of those folks will come out. So hopefully some of you who live out that side, Ed, could join us. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
You gotta be careful. I'm gonna show up on a D9. It's like paving the way to success.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kathleen. Any questions, members? Okay, awesome. Moving on to item number 6. Thank you, Kathleen. And thanks to staff. Please pass it along to Stephen as well. Status update of groundwater wells at all index stations. Aloha, Barry. Good to see you there.
And thank you, and members. So for August, we have 4 index wells in low groundwater status. Pro City, Punaluu, and Wailua are in caution, and Kaimuki is in alert. Monthly production is 147 million gallons per day. The rainfall index is 81. The 5-month moving average is 140. The rainfall forecast is below normal through October. Typically, August is the highest demand month. The head levels are slightly decreasing because it's the high demand, but it's still fairly high there. And then when you get to the rainfall at the bottom, the important thing is the 5-month moving average is still above the red line. So the rainfall we had in April and May are still filled, recharge the aquifers. And then you get to the production. So typically August is the highest production one. We'll see what happens in September. But that demand is a little bit lower than the 5-year average. And last year is a testament to Kathleen's folks in our conservation programs, reducing demand. So with that, that's my report, and happy to take any questions.
Members, any questions? Very quick question. Just one quick question for you. Like you mentioned Kaimuki as in alert. And you can see Kaimuki goes up and down, right? Is that just like the balancing act because we have all this stuff off in Halawa and Aiea? Or where does that come from?
Yeah, then we did cut back at Beretania a bit. Yeah, so from 7 it went to like 2 to 3. So it's being picked up at Kaimuki. One of the things we look at Kaimuki is the chloride content. Kaimuki is draft sensitive. It just the head levels fall, but the chlorides are very stable. They're still in the low hundreds, so it's not rising. And then our operations has made some adjustments. Once we saw the data, they've actually changed operations a little bit. So we should see some change in September. But yeah, it typically does go down, and well, we don't want it to go below into critical,
right?
Because then you're really cavitating the pumps and stuff. So, but yeah, it's a balancing act between the big pump stations and then tied with the demand and the weather. So,
and you said August is like the crest of it all,
right?
Okay,
it's like we're getting through it, but we'll see.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Okay. Last but not least, water main repair report for August 2024. Chair recognizes Wayne.
Good afternoon, board chair and members.
Wayne Tello, Acting Program Administrator for Field Operations. Water main report for the month of August. We had 34 main breaks, 27 were leaks, and 7 were breaks. For the leak detection, there were 82 points of interest. Found 55 leaks, 6 were main leaks, 21 were meter coupling leaks, 4 on customer side, and 4 were service leaks. That's my report. Any questions?
Members? Any questions?
I just want to point out that if you look on the totals for even the POIs, or points of interest, the investigated leaks found, the numbers are kind of on an upward trend. So again, a testament to Brian Chung and his leadership and his team, our leak detection team.
Yeah, thanks, you know. It's good to meet the folks who are behind all the good work. Thank you.
Good work.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. Okay, I'd like to get a motion for a 5-minute break to go into executive session, let the staff get the Zoom room set up and give us a quick break. So here, a motion to take a 5-minute recess. So moved.
Second.
Seconded by, we'll take Gene and Ed on this one. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion approved. 5-minute break. Thank you, folks. All right, we're in regular session. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Ed. Seconded by John. All in favor to adjourn, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes, 7 ayes. Meeting is adjourned.